Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. I saw that more than 20 countries will participate today. My name is Danica, and I'm president of Bled School of Management for the ones who don't know me yet. And it's my great pleasure to greet you at our webinar. Which come first, customer centricity or employee centricity? This topic is a very interesting one and can be very useful for HR managers and in general for managers, for all of us who lead. And we invited somebody whom we know for many years already, Aleksandra Kregar. She was studying in our school on MBA, on Master of Management she got. Then she was inscribed in PhD. And she is this year to finish her doctoral degree at IDC Bled School of Management. Aleksandra made a great career in the food industry. Her function before being an advisor in a consulting company, Competo, her function was at Atlantic Grupa as a director of central marketing, and then later she assumed the position of director of corporate strategy. Also, her PhD is in marketing. So we have a great expert with us today, and she is also, of course, having plenty of different functions, like president of EFI Slovenia. EFI is giving the biggest prize in marketing. She was president of the jury. She is a member of Slovenian Marketing Conference 17, 18, 19 program boards, etc. So I just would like still to once again to tell you that we see that people are here from Slovenia, Croatia, Italy, Serbia, Albania, Ukraine, Romania, Russia, quite a lot of people also, Netherlands, even Kosovo, Austria, Macedonia, Pakistan, Czech Republic, Bosnia. And if I didn't mention somebody, I'm sorry, but we shall be aware of everybody at the end of this event. I'm very sorry I cannot receive you in our school physically on the terrace. I shall not say that I would hug you, but I would offer you a great coffee or tea, whatever you prefer. This comes next time. I shall at the end tell you some words. Don't expect too long introduction, something about what we are doing in the second half of the year, where we hope to have already face-to-face education. So now I shall stop and give the floor to Aleksandra. Aleksandra, welcome. And the floor is yours. Thank you very, very much to all of you for coming. And thank you very much, Aleksandra, to take over this important job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a nice introduction, Danica. And good morning to everyone, also from my side. So thank you to joining us at this IDC webinar format. And as Danica already presented, so if I talk in marketing language, I'm very loyal to IDC brand school. So it's my pleasure today, and I'm really happy and excited that I have opportunity to be here as a speaker, not only as a participant of different courses and lectures. So some introductory notice before we started. The webinar will take 60 minutes with about 45 minutes of my presentation, and then I will open space to your questions. We already received quite some questions. We already have some questions in advance, but you could also use your Q&A button and to ask a question, and I will some of them I will answer at the end of the webinar, and all others via email. And maybe the last notice, so the recording of this webinar will be available on IDC and also on Competo website. So the topic of today's webinar is what's more important? So who comes first, customer centricity or employee centricity? And so the background of this quite huge and important title is so in company strategy and cultural orientation. So the main hypothesis is that culture and strategy are both equally important in the companies. And when company is employee-centric, then company builds employer brand of the company. And this employee centricity very much support customer centricity in the company. So I would like to show you the steps how we build employer brand, and how to, with building employer brand, we at the same time support the customer orientation. And that finally, so this is not just responsibility and role of the HR department or marketing or communication department, but predominantly this is top management role and CEO responsibility. So I will start to sharing the slides now. Okay, so I hope that you will see. I see on my screen, I suppose that it's everything okay. Let me start with the presentation. So how the webinar is divided. I put three main areas in my presentation. So I will start with why is for companies strategically important to be not only customer, but also employee-centric. In the second part, I will put the focus on how focusing on employee centricity through building employer brand also support customer centricity. And as I said, so I will present the framework, how companies build employer brand. And also I put some focus on current situation, and the importance of building employee centricity in the COVID times or in any changing times when companies facing it. And in the last part, so I will just end the webinar with, so who is responsible for that and what it should be responsibility and how companies should organize that they not just have employer brand on their paper, but also that they live it every day through programs and actions what company define. So let me start first with the general framework each company has. So no matter of size of the company, no matter of how many markets you compete, how many brands you have in your portfolio or in which industry are you in. So each company knows his what. So company know what products or services they sell to their customers or their consumers. Each company also know how they do it. So they define certain organizational structure, they have nominated roles and responsibilities, they define working procedures and implement processes, they develop people, they have predominantly leadership style, and they somehow communicate with employees internally and also externally. But only some of them have the why. So there are not all companies who understand why they're here. So what is the purpose and what is the cause of why they exist? And they don't live, so maybe they define values, but they put these values on the internet website, and you cannot see values through organizational culture, through their behaviors, through their product portfolio. So they don't connect culture with their everyday life. And if we said that what is strategy part of the company, why and how belongs to culture and organizational enablement. And so also on this slide and also in real life, we could see that what, why, and how are connected. So that strategy and culture are more connected than we even think on the first glance. But unfortunately, what we see in the reality, also through Competo now in our consultancy business, is that strategy and culture live in companies on different words. They even have separate leadership and budget for strategy and culture. And those companies who see that culture and strategy is an important element of company, they miss to link relationship between them. So miss relationship between what, how, and why. But in the times we are facing now, it's even more important than ever before that you have culture and strategy somehow in the right balance, that culture and strategy support each other. And when company create culture, create strategy, so they think about classical strategic framework. So first of all, they say they define what are their winning ambition, and then they listen to customers. So they want to understand who are the customers and what are their needs and how they are live and how they could satisfy to those needs with their brands. So they define how will they win and where they will play. And when company thinks about culture, so company asks themselves, so who are we today as personality? So who we want to be and how do we get there? So are we okay with situation today, or we have changed something in our values, in our beliefs? So in that case, company thinks more on employees. And it's very important that company connect employee centricity with customer centricity. While only with the right culture, you could bring your strategy to life. And at the end are your employees who make your strategy happen. So employees are in that times and employee centricity, the first and the most important thing in the company. But in today's challenging times, so employee centricity and culture is more or less seen as an HR issue only, which is not only HR issue, it's the issue of top management. And unfortunately, a lot of companies don't see employees and customers, so building brands as an investment, but as a cost. And during these times, so there are HR departments and marketing who are the first, who has to cut their budgets so for the investment and to nurture employee or customer centricity. But what is really culture? So we know this famous quote that culture is strategy for the breakfast. And there are many misconceptions. What is culture? Which elements define culture? And what is really benefit for the company? And you know, culture is not new coffee espresso machine or new paintings, wall paintings in your offices. There's nothing wrong with coffee espresso machine, but real culture, it's benefit. It's your company's strategic positioning. And you have, so wall decorations and coffee machines are in strategic position. So you have to define your values, your leadership style. You have to define how you, your organizational structure, your norms, your beliefs, your behavior, your atmosphere at the work. And with that culture, this culture is then basis for creating your corporate brand and also for creating for employer brand. And if you define, and if you're employer-centric and you define your employer brand properly, then you achieve that you have engaged employees. And a lot of researchers show that if your employees are engaged, they are happy and they are most likely to satisfy your customer. And customer satisfaction leads in so business success, so employer brand and employee centricity influence your bottom line. And if we look on the company from the perspective of brands, so each company has three types of brands. You have your corporate brand, who communicate with investors, with banks, so more with business environment. Then each company has consumer brands, so product or service brands, who communicate and serve the consumers. And on the other side, each company has employer brand. Whatever you actively manage or not, you have certain image on the labor market. And important to see is that all those brands have, so the glue of all those brands is culture. So these values, these norms, these beliefs, you have to spread in your portfolio of brands. And you have to achieve unified messages. So when you communicate with your consumers, you have to show that this brand is in the same family or belongs to the same company. Why? While evidently, so consumers, okay, first we check products and services, and you want to understand the quality of product and the price and performance. But it's very important also for us that we understand who is behind. So who are the top management, who are owners, in what they believe, what is their culture, and how they think about employees. Are they employee-centric or not? And the same logic goes with employee brand. So when somebody apply for a job or looking for the opportunity in certain company, so the image of employer brand is very important. So this is the first thing candidates check in the company. And beside these unified messages between among all brands, it is also evident that unified messages also means high return on investment of the communication. But beside high return on investment, it's also very important what showed this research from LinkedIn and Lippincott, which showed that if company has strong consumer and employer brand, strong consumer and employer brands, so they financially outperform their peers. That means that they have higher growth in shareholders' value over 5 years period. And for me as marketeer, this is very important insight, while it shows that consumer and employer brand have some sort of convergence area, and they serve, so they have separate but somehow complementary goals of the company. And each company has its employer brand. So as I said before, whenever you actively working on it or not, so you build your employer brand every day. And here we have some example of some insights from one research which show that company culture, which is several times seen more as soft part of the issue of the company, are the second most important factor for candidates where they're looking for if they would like to apply for, in a job for a certain company. So after compensation, culture is the second most important element. As well, other soft elements, so reputation of the company, company mission or purpose, or other elements of culture are important factors which turn job seekers away from the company if they cannot feel the company culture, and if they cannot stick with their values and their beliefs to a company culture and values. And in building employer centricity, it's also very important to realize for a company that at the end, you don't pick talents, but talents picks you. And this Glassford research showed this shocking number that more than 70% of candidates, so as I said before, check the employer brand, check the company on labor market, check how you behave with your employees and which is your working environment and how are you as employer, not just as producer of brands. And if this is the fact, so it is important to realize that you have to build systematically your employer brand and nurture employee centricity, and that you should do this completely on the same way and in the same logic what companies do when they manage their consumer brands. Employer brand works with or target two different employee groups. So first, employer brand works for current employees, so to drive employee retention, and also, so the second important group of employer branding is attracting new candidates, new employees. And as I already said before, so there is very much logical connection about employees retention and the bottom line of the company. While there are a lot of researchers who show that if employees are satisfied and if they are engaged, so they better manage customer satisfaction. And if customers are satisfied with our company and with our products, so they become loyal. And if they are loyal, loyalty means directly profitability of the company. So logic of employer branding is, we could say also, so having happy employees and happy company. And on the other side, so employee satisfaction and engagement and customer satisfaction also leads to brand advocacy. So if both target groups are satisfied with the company, so they're the best brand ambassadors of your company and of your brands and influencers on social media. But beside this connection, so we could see also a lot of positive measurable effects of company bottom line in terms of if you manage employer brand properly, so you could have lower fluctuation you have a high retention rate, you could increase your productivity, you could influence on creativity indexes in company, and you contribute to the bottom line while you have lower cost for hiring, or your recruiting speed is much higher, you will receive candidates which are better fit for you, and also you have a lot of referrals while you have a lot of advocacy about your company. And also, so managing employer brand gives you image and reputation on the market, and on the other side, differentiate you from the competitors, which is also an important feature when you are looking for good talents. So to conclude this first part, and I would like to point out once again that culture and strategy works together, and then when company define this higher ambition and goal for and vision for the company, and when the company define how they will compete and with which products, they should align organizational structure and company align culture with strategy, and then build people strategy based on competencies and capabilities company need to make this strategy alive. So company also in the process of defining company strategy has to understand which are different capabilities and differentiated capabilities company need to realize the strategy, and how we attract employees not with only with the right culture, but also that they have basis and that they are eager to develop the skills and competencies company need to realize this strategy. And all those elements we put in our employer brand. If we move now to the second part and look about, so how is the procedure? So how company should building employer brand? So I will say that the procedure is completely there is the same logic in building employer brand like customer brands. And here in this part of building employer brand and value proposition is important that marketing with the capability of building consumer brands is close peer to HR, who is leading this process of nurturing and building employer brands. So here we have classically 4 steps. In first step, so company should understand the current situation. So what is the loudest and the most challenging points of employer brand today? This insight is good insight then when company create employer brand and brand essence and value proposition. So employer brand is your position, how you differentiate on the labor market, and employer value proposition and attributes means what you offer to employees in return to their skills and knowledge. And when the company define this, then in the third part, company should define how they should build the employer brand. So company define different activities and programs, define who is responsible for implementation of each part of employer brand, what is the timeline, what is dedicated budget, and also how we communicate internally and also externally. So what we are doing so what we are offering our employees and where we are better than competitors. And when we think about competitors, don't just think about companies in your industry, but also now it's working much more complex. So you have to also look for the competition in other companies. And the last part is measuring results. So you have to define what are the KPIs which you will track regularly, and then so at least quarterly or each half a year, so check where you are in terms of implementation of employer brand. So let us look now step by step, so what are the main points and how we so create this employee centricity. So first we start with a listening tour. So it is very important to understand where we are today. And we start the listening first with the discussion with top management to understand what are their ambitions. So how they see company today in the next strategic period time. So what will be main strategic guidelines, what are the priorities of the company, and how they see today culture and strategic fit. So this is very important part to understand. So owners and top management, how they see the company development in the future. Then you should organize like you do with your customers. So you have to list your employees via focus groups, or you could do the employee survey, but taking into the consideration all aspects of employment. So you first check why people come here in your company and why they apply for certain job, and then you have to understand each aspects of employment. So from organization to job responsibility, what are the relationship with the managers and peers, what are the working conditions in the company, what are salary and benefits, general atmosphere, do they have the right tools? So you check practically everything. And when you organize focus groups, so you should take care of that you have nice, that you have right members in your focus group. So maybe you should invite new hires, which probably have some sort of honeymoon with the company, and then you invite employees which are 5 or more years in the company, 10 or more years if you have some. You should invite employees from different generations, from different seniority levels, maybe different performers. And of course, if you are competing on several markets, you should understand your position as employer brand in every market. While it's not necessary that you have the same fame and glory on the same markets. And at the end, hopefully that companies has the institution of exiting interviews. So you should also understand what are the main reasons why employees leaving your company. So what are the predominant reasons? And then after that, you have some pictures. So what's going on in the company and how company is in fact employee-centric. Here in this slide, I would just like to make a point that, so here is the slide of last year reported in one BCG conference, when they show how many companies in general invest in customer centricity, and then companies in general invest 10 times less in listening employees. So this is huge room for improvement also for HR and marketing department. So try to understand what's going on with our employees, not just focusing on the customers and checking their behaviors and their user occasions and what they like or don't like in your products, but predominantly, if we say that employees are the most important in the company, so try to understand what's going on and have regular checkups with your employees, not when you're creating employer brand, but also when you're managing your employer brand. And this, the third part of this understanding about what's going on in your company is that you understand what is happening in the future of work. Now we have a special situation, and even before the COVID crisis, so changing technologies and new working principles somehow disrupt jobs and skills employees need. But it's important here, predominantly for HR department, that they're capable to forecast what will going on in the future of talent in jobs and in workplace itself, and what is relevant for your company, that at the end you could do some gap analysis. So at the end you should understand where you are. So first of all, you will receive at least 2 main gaps. First is your situation today and what you would like to be tomorrow. And this picture not necessarily match well in between each other. And also, normally, result of this first phase is that top management has, I will not say completely different picture, but they have different picture or perspective about employee centricity and about culture and priorities. But it's very important that you see and understand what employees think. And in this phase, yeah, it's sometimes it's very hard to present this to top management and owners, and you need some time to digest this information. But on the other side, this is very valuable information and insight, which goes then to second phase, when you are starting to prepare for create your employer brand and your employer essence. So how we based on all this information, how we then create employer brand? First, this is the workshop when you should invite, and you should have there stakeholders of all main functions, including top management and CEO, and owners if you think that it's also important here. But the most important is that you have CEO on board. Without CEO, so this workshop and employer brand will not live. So you have to assure that you have the right people there. And then, so in this workshop, you first check, so what your gap analysis, your main challenges you find out in the first phase, how they match with your current situation about your culture. So you have to understand, so what employees feel about your leadership style, about how you communicate with them, about how you live the norms and beliefs, and are your values the right one or not, or you behave the right way or not. And you have to also, and basis for this, for corporate brand lies in culture. So before you start to define your employer brand, you have to also first to check your company brand. And the most important element here is to understand who is your personality. So who are you, who is your archetype? What is your archetype? And that you define your, I will say, human part of company. For example, you have to understand if you are, I don't know, creator, like Apple is, then you are, so you invent new products. You're a company who creates one totally new ways of occasion. If you are, for example, a ruler, like many banks are, or insurance companies, then you set the territory. You offering trust and responsibility. Or, for example, if you are completely opposite, you are the jester, you're constantly having a fun as a company. So you are a great innovator, you are thinking out of the box. So as you could see, so these types, we know 12 main types of main archetypes, and these show completely different personality of a company. And why is this important? While this personality is direct input for your employer brand. So when you build elements of employer brand, you should take into the consideration this personality if you would like to be consistent with the messaging, what we see before in the slide. And you have to understand which type of employer brand are you. Are you supportive employer brand, so maybe more social, or you are more adventurous, where entrepreneurship spirit is much more important. So you have to understand who you are as personality. And then when you define main elements of your brand, so reason to believe, personality, values, emotional aspects of your brands, then you define your people proposition, your people main essence and attributes, and you look on the area of job characteristics, what you offer as working conditions, how it's possible to develop a career in the company, and also remuneration and other benefits. And on this, it is also preferable that on this workshop you also create some main communication statements. So what will be your main messages toward different target group of employees? Don't forget that you have to end this workshop, or maybe you end this workshop and you do sleep over and you again check those elements of culture, corporate brand, employer brand, and your employer value proposition with top management again. And you have to sign, they have to confirm that that is it. And maybe if you are so big company and you compete on the many markets, you could also do some pilot testing of your communication messages, but important element is that you have buy-in of top management. While without them, you cannot live your employee centricity. When creating employer value propositions, so these attributes which are differentiator between your company and your competitors, please have in mind that so you could deliver this what you offer in your when you're hiring someone. So that have in mind that you are different at the same time, but you should be credible, you should be attractive, you should be real, and should be sustainable. It means that so these values are you could live at least 3 to 5 years. And when you're offering when you're designing employer value proposition, also think about 3 different levels of benefits. So first of all, you should offer competitive compensation and benefits. Then as employer brand, you should be attractive. So you should offer a unique and differentiated employee experience people have in your company, and you should be unique. So try to match your employer value proposition with this purpose, with why, what we show on the first slide. So help me, if I'm an employee, to understand why I belong here in this company, how I should feel. And so when we define this second step, so based on insight, we create employer brands, we create our identity and our value proposition. Then we define and confirm this with top management. Then we define in the third stage our strategy and plan. So how we should nurture and how we should develop our brand and communicate it. I will go back to brands, what I showed before, and again, I would like to show that employer brand is in fact not just responsibility of HR, but also on marketing department. While building brands, consumer brands and employer brand is completely the same framework and have completely the same steps. And don't forget that when you define, so your employees and you segment them, when you define value proposition, when you create your strategy, it's very important that you also show that great experience in the company. So experience is even much more important than when you create a brand. So in brand, you just say what employees could have in the company, but with experience, you prove that you really deliver what you offer in during when you're attracting someone. So how to define experience? So in this third step, it's very important that company define classical life stages of employees, so classical journey. So from when you're attracting someone through hiring process, when you're pre-onboarding and onboarding your new talents, and when somebody is with you in the company, and if employee decided to leave, so what projects, what actions you did in this case. And here in this step, the first role of HR is to check all activities and all projects and all programs company define. Okay, normally companies already have some activities in place, but you have to check if all those activities are in line with your company culture and with what you put in your employer value proposition, in your attributes, and they have to match. So you have to go through all these programs, and then when you define them, so how you build each stage of employee life cycle in the company, then you should so create these moments which matter the most and which create so this positive image and reputation of the company. So you cannot expect that your employees deliver to your customers what they didn't expect and what they didn't experience in your company. So if I'm an employee, please so show me that you have attractive offer for me. So in terms of job characteristics and also in terms of payment, and help me to understand so how my job contributed to the general results and success of the company. Give me manager who supported me, who understands me. I would like to feel that my manager so give me a regular feedback. And that I know so what is my career path in the company, and at the end, if I will do this extra mile, so reward me, so reward achievement and give me a reputation based on my work. And so these touch points and this experience in the company is crucial element of employee centricity. And on the other side, so when you define these activities and programs, how you will build employer brand, it's also important to communicate. So each company has 3 media channels in general, so available today. So you as a company have your own media, So you have your own website, you have your own social media, intranet for internal communication. You could share blogs and videos. You could put recruitment ads on mobile and on your social media site, as well as you could organize conferences or boot camps for example, for juniors or students. As well as you have paid media, so you could also participate in other career fairs, or you could post your job ads on the different recruitment portal. And if your efficiency of communication and is good, then your shared media is huge. So you will have brand ambassadors, you will have influencers, and your employer rankings and reputation will raise. So it's crucial to communicate transparently and regularly with employees about each step you do with your employer brand. And they should feel this through their experience in each touch point in the company. Don't forget, when you make communication and when you offer your attributes, that not all employees are the same, like customers. So when you think about brands and product brands, you think that you have different types of customers, and you try to understand their demographic profile, and you have to understand their life cycle and their lifestyle also. And the same is with the employees. So treat employees the same well as you treat your customers. So for somebody for example, in production, they have different important aspects of job, like somebody, I don't know, if in accounting or maybe in controlling. And also there exist differences between generations, and take into the consideration. So when you create your communication persona, when you try to understand who are your customers and employees, and when you group them, you have to understand, so which drivers is the most important, or which attributes is the most important element for each employee group. So, and it's important that when you communicate, you also communicate targeted messages which are relevant only for this group of employees. And employer image, and reputation is I would say some of all activities what you do in this third phase. So when you define proper activities and programs, when your experience as employee, or my experience as employee in the company, so is well through all touch points, I will share this experience with my friends, with my family, even with strangers. And it's very important, so that that I have this positive feeling and image, and at the end, so this reputation make or break your employer brand and your employer centricity. And don't forget that employer image also have a ripple effect also on your customer or consumer brands. And the final phase of the employer branding is that you defined, as I said before, so KPIs. There don't exist one employer brand KPI, but we could separate on these KPIs on three different areas. So in HR, you have quite some KPIs HR normally follow and track with employees. Then you have in marketing, for example, you could measure brand awareness, you could measure net promoting score, efficiency of communication, social media metrics, as well as with communication and KPIs. And now in digital and social media, which is extremely important channel for building your employer brand, so you could practically track everything. And it is important to define, for example, for the first year when you build employer brand, and for the second year and for the third year. So what are the targets of your employer brand? What you would like to achieve, and where you are today, and where you would like to be in 1 year, in 2 years' time. And everything in brand is measurable. So don't forget that marketing as well as HR is not la la la. So that means that everything you could measure in marketing. So it's also one important fact with employer brand, you could measure your activities. So if I said at the sum up, so employer branding and employer centricity is quite complex, and I will say cultural process in the company. While you need top management, you need CEO on board, you need to check your strategy as well as cultural elements. And in the first phase, when you do research and you try to understand when you in fact check your culture, so what is going on in the cultural area and how you live what you are preaching and what you have on your internet website. And through properly managing your employer brand, you at the end, so you measure your awareness. So how are you positioned and how you differentiate it on the labor market versus your competitors. And what's now? So now we are in this special, in the special time. So when we face the crisis, and there are a lot of questions via email. So what is the connection between employee centricity and employer brand and crisis? I would say that employer centricity and employer branding has a huge impact now in this time. Why? So we could see, so we could divide this period, so from 13th of March when started quarantine until now, in three, let me say, in three main areas or three main parts. So in the first part, what companies did, so they, first of all, they would like to, their target was that they have to protect employees. So staying together was the first goal before companies think about business or financial resilience. So we have to over the night change our working principles, as well as we have to manage stress. We have to boosting morale of our employees. So this was the first period. In the second period, where we are now, so we could divide this period in two. I would say in the early stage and in now. So in this week, when we are waiting for this new reality. So at the start, of course, we need in a company to lead teams virtually, and that we also have to know, to show leaders that they have to build trust, that that their employees work, although that they are at home. And we have to maintain culture. So we don't have these morning coffees live, we don't have corridor chats. So we should communicate and find a way how we managing culture distantly. But what we see now, and these are so a lot of questions we receive now in Competo, is how prepare HR activities for onboarding, so for returning back. What should be here steps, and how so we should reskill and upskill our employees, and how we should develop so skills we have now. So what we could see now is that this remote work will stay, maybe not in 100%, but this will be new operating model. And when this quarantine will be, so when this will be new normal, let me say whenever what it will be normal. So HR have to craft a people strategy and develop skills, new skills, so predominantly digital and cognitive skills. We also saw that a lot of companies increase investment in learning and prepare their companies for the next recession and for the next disruption, and that companies start to introducing agile methods. So what is key in this recession is that we don't have history. We don't know from when we could learn. And my advice will also be so test and drive and iterate, and this will be the best possible way how you could also manage your employer brand and employee centricity. And so what companies here, I would like to share with you just some cases, and I will briefly go through while these companies communicate largely, so what they do in this first phase when everything started. So we know that different industries are affected differently, and that some of them are really have huge shock. And the research of Universum in March and April show that due to the COVID, so employer brands stand as a priority in the companies. They remain their budgets. Of course, there exist differences between the industries, but employee branding, so marketing and communication activities stay as a top priority of the top management and of the HR and marketing and communication leaders. And here we could see, so via social media, so how different companies, for example, here are the cases from the companies which were infected the most, so how they manage their situation, so how they openly communicate what are they doing. And so they contributing to society, they go back to schools, they donated their time. And also other car producers, here is the case of Volvo, so how they week by week so make full transparency in what are they doing. And this last case, so 2 weeks ago, when they welcoming back people to the production sites, so what they really communicate what they're doing. So they have their very open, let me say, transparent communication. So what are their next steps, and how they cope in this situation. We could also see some good cases, so staff sharing, we in marketing will say, so co-branding of activities between Aldi and McDonald's, so that companies help each other and moving forward, but together. And we also could observe that some HR procedures we cannot imagine before, for example, onboarding via social in, let me say, in classical industries. We were forced as a company so to do onboarding and maybe also pre-boarding process virtually. And also Unilever is one good case while they do their online interviews with students for summer camps completely online. So they did 280,000 interviews via online, and so they also reported that this work this will stay also in the future as a main practice. So what to do with employer centricity and with employer brand in such a crisis like this crisis with COVID situation is? So first of all, it's important that you did your culture check. So check your values if they are still valid, and adapt if necessary. Then the second advice will be, so now it's time, if you have employer brand, check your main elements of branding: reason to believe, personality, how values match with your culture, and if attributes of employer brand is still important for employees in these days. And be mindful in terms of and empathic in communication. So choose the proper tone and voice of communication. Silence is not optional, so you have to communicate. Show positive cases. There is no need for any filters on your pictures. So short stories and show experience. What employees when they are working from home, and what top management is doing to try to think new strategic paths and design business models maybe, and adapt way of working. And also, so remember this line before when I show, so how important is investment in understanding how employees are feeling today. So do regular research with employees. So check what they feel. So Zoom, Teams, you offer possibility to organize virtual focus groups. There is no need to be alive. Of course, it's better, but technology helps us also in building employer brand from the scratch, that you could start with focus groups via internet. So, and all round tables and all discussions you could do distantly. And in terms of so how to build now employer brand, it's important that if COVID forces that companies stay employee-centric, HR leaders with top management have to think about 4 levels of employment, in terms of how leaders will be prepared for the future. How your employees will be prepared. So there will be new jobs, as I said before, there is need for reskilling and upskilling, and it will be workplace change. And today what we see is also that a lot of companies check their HR strategies and all systems and try to be as much as agile as possible and change the regular procedure they have in recruiting, so in staffing, in onboarding process, in mentoring, in coaching. So they put all activities online. And just last few slides, so about the responsibility of employer brand. So employer branding and employee centricity, as I said before, is priority for all times. So in good and bad times, you need employer brand, and even in bad times, and in situation like COVID you need huge, you need to do huge pressure on communication about situation in the company and how you will organize your work in the future and what to do today. And there are some questions. Should we start now with employer branding? Yes, you should. Maybe you don't need the whole framework what I showed before, but start with small steps while waiting that this crisis will be over, and then starting employer brand. I think that it will be too late, while the world will be so much different. So the message is, try small steps. And for example, if you started with returning back and onboarding procedure, which is one important part of employer branding activity, try with these, check your values, check your main procedures, and start to communicate in line with your employer value proposition and culture. And yes, as I said several times, so employer branding is classic and is a very good case, so that you need collaboration between functions. So this is a good case of no silos in company. So you need normally you have three functions which has to work together and collaborate. So HR as a lead, and marketing and communication as good peers, and then you need top management. So top managers has to understand their role, and they should take the employer branding seriously. And at the end, it's also very important, is the same situation like companies has when they're building their product brands. So if you have brand managers for building your brands, then you need also employer branding managers or specialists who take care of your employees. And you know, this situation in employer branding and employee centricity is cultural transformation. So it's not just that you build another brand in your portfolio. This activity forces you to be brutally honest and open, and that you as a company check on one side strategy and your ambitions, and on the other side, so your cultural elements and values, and that you understand, and that also top management understand that you need time for build employer brand. And that you also, so sometimes top management is a little bit nervous, so they would like to see results over the night, but it's impossible like in consumer brands. So you need 1-2 years to build properly your brand. So you should to be consistent in communication and with the experience employees have in your company. So you have to dedicate resources. So employer brand need budget and need person who will manage and who will develop your employer brand. So now I come to the end of my presentation in this webinar. I think that only 5 minutes left, and maybe we should look on of some questions. So I saw the first question which came in your Q&A is, so what is the connection between employer branding and recruitment marketing? So this is quite, so often we hear this question. So recruitment marketing is one activity of employer brand, but this is just one activity. So employer brand runs through the whole organization, as I showed before, and on all levels. And it works in the entire employment cycle. So in employer branding, you should think about hiring process, as well as attracting, as well as onboarding, and when somebody exiting your company. Talent and recruitment marketing is only one part of employer branding. And maybe I will take another question. Here, this is interesting one maybe. So if I'm a startup company, are we need employer branding or not? Yes, as I said before, so every company needs and has employer brand. Whether you're working on it or not, you build your brand. And it's important to say, so why somebody will join your company and what you offer and how are you different versus your competitors. So the answer is yes. But what we see in many times, so startups, first they have to put HR people on board. So you need person who is responsible for HR activities. And maybe this HR person then nominate and develop employer brand also in the future. So yeah, but answer is yes, you need employer brand. So I will now give floor to Danica to conclude the webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Look, I have a rose for you.
Oh, thank you.
Virtually, I am presenting you, and thank you really very, very much. Do you see it?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You cannot smell it, but it is a good one, a real one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aleksandra. I enjoyed listening to you. I'm sure that the others did too. I would like now Vlado to take away this and to put this slide, last slide, and to put another one on, because we would like to hear how the evaluations, how were people liking it, and what did they learn from you. And I would really appreciate if we can get now this for a second, and then of course I shall take 5 to 10 minutes maximum time of you, the participants, to tell you what are we doing in our school, because it's certainly interesting now for everybody. How do we transform for high touch to high tech? But we still hope to have high touch, of course. So here we are, looking to the end polling. Okay, thank you very, very much, Aleksandra, once again. Thank you very much, dear public, to listen to this lecture. I hope you got something interesting, some interesting insights. I did. I was very much looking forward to hear, especially now about COVID crisis and etc. What are we doing? So and then to compare what we are doing. And I think that this can be very helpful. So once again, thank you. And if you allow me, I would now go through some slides and tell you some things what we are doing now in our school. You know that I'm now trying to change the slide. The first one, it is program 2020. I shall not talk too much about Network for Life, because this is on something what we are very well known and on excellent location too, and a school with personal touch and a transformation learning experience. I can tell you that we are really trying to keep all that also in the future, although it is on online, and it is of course requesting and other type of management education. But I saw already that still you can keep some of the experiential learning, etc., but of course with different efforts. Here you have a little graph where I take you from young managers program to advanced management program to general management program and executive MBA and to DBA. You heard that Aleksandra will graduate this year in her PhD. So this is more academic, because she has the ambition to become a professor of marketing. But we also added to this PhD a Doctor of Business Administration. There are only 10 schools in the world that have accredited by AMBA, by British AMBA, DBA. It's more practice oriented, and it is, you know, the main difference, the program is the same, almost the same, but the main difference is that you don't need to write so many scientific articles because you are studying to become better manager, better leader, so you don't need so much academic endeavors and academic achievements. And you know, that's why we make it somehow easier concerning this for the business people. Then if I go from now, if I start to go from young managers, we move these young managers, we still plan. So here you will see the programs which will be face-to-face. We moved it in the second half of the year. And if it still doesn't go end of August or September, we shall then have it online on the same time. This is what I can promise you. So young managers, we moved. This is an 11 days program. It's for young people who really would like to make, you know, whom you would like to integrate in the concerning teamwork, etc., in the organization, who have a potential to be managers in the future, and they are getting, like, you know, it's not a mini MBA, but it's mini MBA. So they get all what you get in MBA, but in short version, and the basics of management. So this is young managers. Then we have advanced management program, which was usually taking place in Belgrade. But so now we have young managers in September, you know, from 1 to 11th of September. This is what I may not forget to tell you. And you are welcome to apply now. And as I said, we want to make it face-to-face, but if it will be any problem concerning COVID, etc., we shall make it online on the same time. Then we have advanced management program. This one is it was usually taking place in Belgrade. Now it is not anymore. I mean, now it will go out of the, you know, computer, and we shall have in advanced management, we shall have 3 modules: business transformation by Professor Filipovic, strategic management by Miquel Llado from Spain, and managing the people side of organization by Philip Stiles, Judge Business School, Cambridge University, UK. Absolutely 3 fantastic modules. And then we have a general management program, which it's our very popular program. The participants are very same caliber as they are in executive MBA. But, you know, it is a shorter version. It is taking place in 2 modules. This year, it's a different because it gets a blended character. And so the first module, which will be blended, that, I mean, online, it is already now, this week, starting May 18 to 23rd, online delivery with 2 very, very good professors. And these 2 programs, we were also making possible that other people are coming to see it. It's with 2 Canadian professors, Danny Shapiro and Salman Mafti. And then we have again in August, which we imagine to have in Bled, August 24 to 29, 1 week. And then the other 2 module program on November 2nd to November 13 this year. It will be again, we imagine it face-to-face in Bled. So this is the program that is, and it has also specialization on purchasing. And it is very important is a project work in this program, so that people can immediately start to use the knowledge in the practice. So this is the general management program. And then, of course, I could say some words only about the MBA. You know that we have 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year version, and each of them has 17 weeks. The 1 year is the most intensive one because the modules are in 5 weeks. The 2 year, which is the most popular, it's in 7 modules in 2 years, completed in 2 years, and it is like 2 weeks or 3 weeks module. And then the 3 years is really for the ones who cannot make a 2 weeks when they are coming whenever the time permits. So you can see for the ones who don't know us well enough that we are extremely flexible concerning the time. You know that we have even 7 new people now. They will come to MBA now in May, although this is the 2nd module, but they will still come because they decided that now in the time of crisis, they have time to study. And so I think that this is the right thing. You know, the companies who are now saving the money on such a way that they don't send anybody for education, it's a mistake, because just now we have to be the best prepared. So I shall say now still 2 minutes. I ask for your attention. I shall tell you which programs we have still. So this online I mentioned, measuring organizational performance with Danish Bureau, which is in the frame of the general management program, May 18 to 20. And then May 21 to 23, developing competitive advantage with Simon Mafti from Canada. Both come from Canada. And then I shall tell you still about other programs like we have, and now I shall quickly go through this, of course, here, quickly go through these programs, which we short programs. Strategic marketing in times of recession with Vikas Tibrevala. He is a famous professor of marketing, world famous. He is now at IMD Lausanne. Before he was at INSEAD. It's an end of August, as you can see. Then inspiring leaders and engaged employees, profitable customer relations, something similar to what Aleksandra was today talking, but you know, it's also a lot about customer centricity, although she was more talking about the employee centricity, but still, you know, it's probably our best program. It's really an inspirational program with Juan Serrano from Spain. September 16, 17. Then we have digital strategy with Joe Peppard from MIT Sloan School of Management. Peppard is teaching in our MBA. He is a famous professor, and MIT felt that they need to employ more people because they have an image to be great in artificial intelligence and in digitalization, etc. So they employed him some years ago, and I have a pleasure to say that yesterday at a big event, the biggest in Europe, on artificial intelligence, practical aspects of it in, you know, Austrian Chamber of Commerce organized it. We were partnered there with Joe Peppard because we are proud of that professor, and I can tell you he was really very, very interesting and very good. And then finance for non-financial managers, our program, which was repeated at least 200 times or even 250 times, with Igor Magdalenic, the son of Rene Magdalenic, whom, you know, Rene prepared him, his son, for this subject. So it's again a very great experience with him, and that is part 1 in October and part 2 in November. So you are invited. Igor did not want to do it online, so we do it, all these programs are face-to-face. And then we have leading disruptive change with Nenad Filipovic, who is well known to everybody, and who is acquainted with our school, and then transformational leadership with famous Pierre Cass. These are the programs in short till the end of the year. And then, of course, we have a lot of custom-made programs. We'll have a lot of clients from all over the world. You can see on this, what do? We make cultural change, we make leadership academy. Here it's not written that we have also a marketing academy together with Metroni company from Switzerland, that we have problem solving workshop, etc. Talent pool development, longer programs, shorter programs. In any case, we are terribly interested in what the companies need, and then we are trying together with the companies make a diagnosis, and then of course to find the program. And our idea is that we shall, to find a good knowledge for them. And our idea now is that we should go also more into to help them to implement then this knowledge and to advise them more. So you can count on that, and we shall visit you and write you so that we learn what are your wishes. Here in front of you, you see now our main customers. They come from Slovenia, Croatia, and of course many other companies all around the world. And I don't think that anybody in our region has so many clients from everywhere as we do. And here is our address. You can see that we have already for some time the office in Vienna, and that we wanted to have a great seminar this year. We started on a very good, how shall I say, we had a great start. We expected 600 Chinese in the whole year to come for Young Managers Program, and the part of the program would be held in Vienna, part of the program in Slovenia. But then because of the COVID-19 in China, we had to cancel that. And now, of course, if it was later, we would have to cancel it now. But we still hope to have some of this in the second half of the year. And then, of course, we are preparing with Association of Dutch doctors and managers. We are preparing the program for health management and many other partnerships we are developing. And I hope that this will come to realization very soon. So thank you very, very much for listening to me, and let us stay in touch because we are here for you to help you and to support you in all your important endeavors. And once again, many, many thanks for coming. Look at your website, our website, of course, and many, many thanks for coming and for spending this time with us. And thank you very much also, Aleksandra, once again, for this great lecture.